Good morning and welcome to the Committee on Ways and Means. Committee Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assembly members Anderson, Backus, Brown May, Dickman, Hafen, Hibbets, Howdigi, Koenig, Muska, O'Neill, Torres Fawcett, Watts, Yeager, and Chairman Moreno.
And I am here. Will you please mark Speaker Yeager and Majority Leader Hadigi present when they arrive? I'll remind everyone here in the Carson City audience in Las Vegas and the members here at the dais to please silent your electronic devices. We will have public comment at the end of today's meeting. Our number for public comment is 888-475-4499. The meeting ID is 8631-847-4995, and then please press pound. Members, we will have 3 bill hearings. We will be taking that out of order for today. We will hear AB 552 first, then followed by 554, and then ending with AB 356. We will also have bill introductions. We have 20 bills to introduce today for the BDRs. That will be at the end, just before our public comment. If you're going to testify, we ask that you make sure you turn on the mic, state and spell your name for the record, and each time you speak, you'll have to repeat your name. And there's 2 minutes when testifying and in public comment. We ask that everyone is respectful and courteous in our interactions in our meetings. We don't always see eye to eye on things, but we will be respectful of each other. If for any reason someone chooses not to be respectful, I will have you removed from my committee room because that is just unacceptable. So with that, we will now open the hearing on AB 552. Good morning. Do you know how special you are? You're our first bill as we go through this, wind down this session.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Councilman Cannavaro, for the record, I serve as the Administrative Services Officer for the Division of Child and Family Services. AB 552 implements a budgetary measure for DCFS that eliminates the Child Trust for child welfare and eliminates the requirement for the division to deduct from a child's separate account in the fund any services to the child provided by public money. This practice to use a child's benefit to offset the cost of foster care began in 1993 when the Child Welfare Trust account, budget account 3242, was created in NRS 432.037. This proposed change reduces the budget by $97,153 in payments to the rural child welfare in each year of the biennium and reuses reserves rather than state general fund. The Title IV-E Social Security Act does not require states to claim the cost of care or offset it. Therefore, states can choose the financial practice to opt in or opt out of this budgetary policy. This concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any. It appears that the only budget implementation, this is a budget implementation bill, and the only fiscal impact, it relates to Decision Unit E260. And it was approved by the Money Committees on May 5th, that BA 3229 for the Rural Child Welfare Budget Account. All right, not seeing any questions. Not only are you lucky, you're like really lucky this morning. Wow, how special you are. With that, we'll invite anyone to the table that'd like to comment in support of AB 552. Not seeing anyone here at the table in Las Vegas and in Carson City. Broadcast, do we have anyone on the phone that would like to provide testimony in support of AB 552?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but we have no callers for support testimony.
Thank you so much. We'll move to opposition. Is there anyone that would like to provide testimony in opposition of AB 552? Not seeing anyone here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. Broadcast, do we have anyone on the phone lines?
Chair, we have no callers for opposition.
Excuse me and thank you. Moving to the neutral, is there anyone that would like to provide neutral testimony for Assembly Bill 552? Not seeing anyone approach the table here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. One last time to the phone lines. Do we have anyone join us on the phone lines that would like to provide testimony in the neutral position of AB 552?
We have no callers for neutral.
Thank you so much. We'll ask the sponsors if there's any closing remarks. All right, not seeing any. Then we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 552, and thank you for joining us. All right, members, for the next two bills, I'll be assisting on the presentation of those bills, so I'm going to turn the gavel over to our vice chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will go ahead and open the hearing on Assembly Bill 554, which revises provisions relating to the grant matching account. And I'll welcome our chair as our presenter and anyone else she has with her today. And whenever they make their way and get settled at the dais, we can begin with the bill presentation.
Good morning, Vice Chair Bacchus and committee. For the record, I'm Assembly Member Danielle Monroe Moreno, and I'm here to present Assembly Bill 554. And I have a phone a friend from our grants division with me here at the table. I will allow her to introduce herself, and then we'll go over the bill.
Good morning, committee. Akia Sanders, for the record, Director of the Office of Federal Assistance. I'm just here to support her if she has any questions. Thank you, guys.
Danielle Monroe Moreno, for the record. AB 554 revises provisions relating to the grant matching account. It provides that any money remaining in the grant matching account at the end of the fiscal year does not revert to the state general fund. And this morning, we'd also like to propose an amendment. There's currently $897,603 in the grant matching program account, which is BA 1334. With the amendment, this bill will become effective upon passage and approval, and the current funding that is in the account would be carried forward into the next fiscal year. This bill has no fiscal impact on our state budget. It's short and simple and easy.
Thank you so much. And you covered that possible amendment, and there's no fiscal impact. Members, do we have any questions regarding this bill? Well, I'll just ask a question. With respect to this bill, why did you bring it? Why is it going to be helpful for these funds to continue forward into the next biennium?
Akia Sanders for the record. I think this is really important, and we kind of think it's a small shift, especially with what's happening at the federal level. You heard Assemblywoman talk about the numbers that we have left. So actually, the way we do it is there's about 290,000 that is uncommitted. And so the issue is that we don't receive those notice of awards from the federal level, which with everything that's happening at the federal level, it was already taking a long time, so it's even slower. That money will go back to general fund, and it's not helping Nevadans match those dollars. And right now, when we do the math, every $1 from our grant match is bringing in $4 of federal funds. So this is just a step in the right direction to make sure that that fund is supporting our state and what it's supposed to do.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Sanders.
Can I also add to that? When Danielle Monroe Moreno, for the record, when I initially sponsored the bill for the grant matching program, I came before this committee, and a lot of you were not there, and asked for $5 million, which was a really big ask even at that time. And the chair said, no, I'll give you $1 million, see what happens. That first million, the very first grant that was able to be awarded, had a 10-to-1 match, and that was with the North Las Vegas Fire Department. Leaving that money there brings even more opportunity to bring in money that's not our general fund to do the good work that we want to do in our communities. So by allowing it not to revert, it's there, as Ms. Sanders said. The federal government's not working with the speed of lightning, and we want to make sure that matching funds are there when those grants are available for Nevada's residents.
Thank you so much. I don't think we have any other questions. So if you guys want to take a step back, we'll go ahead and invite those wishing to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 554 to the dais. I don't see anyone here in Carson City, so let's go to Las Vegas. Sir, when you're ready, go ahead.
Hello, good morning. My name is Miles Dixon at Nevada Grant Lab, here briefly in support of AB 554. This simple change will make the Nevada Grant Matching Program an even more effective tool supporting state agencies, nonprofits, tribes, and local governments as they acquire federal grants that will benefit Nevadans. I also just want to briefly acknowledge and thank the chairwoman as well as Director Sanders for their respective work in continuing to move this program and so many other tools that we're trying to use here in Nevada to get our fair share of federal funding, especially as things change. So thank you so much.
Thank you. AVH, do we have anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in support of AB 554?
We have no callers for support testimony.
We'll go ahead and move to testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 554. We'll start here in Carson City, seeing no one coming to the dais, and doesn't look like anyone's coming to the dais in Las Vegas to give testimony in opposition. AVH, have we had anyone join the phone lines to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 554?
We have no callers for opposition testimony.
Thank you so much. We'll move to neutral testimony. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 554? Las Vegas, anyone wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 554? Seeing none, AVH, has anyone joined the phone lines wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 554?
We still have no callers for neutral testimony.
Perfect. I'd be happy to invite our bill sponsor up to the dais for closing remarks, which she has gone ahead and waived those closing remarks, so we can close the bill hearing on Assembly Bill 554. And our last bill this morning that we can open up the hearing for is Assembly Bill 356. And I'll go ahead and invite our bill sponsor, our chair, back to the dais to present Assembly Bill 356.
Good morning, Vice Chair Backus and Committee. I am Assemblymember Danielle Monroe Moreno, and happy to present Assembly Bill 356, which revises provisions relating to collective bargaining agreements. As amended, AB 356 revises Nevada statutes related to public employees' collective bargaining and state budgeting, including 1, the governor's budgeting requirement and NRS 288.510. The governor must include, when practical, funding agreed upon in collective bargaining agreements in the biennial proposed executive budget. If deemed impractical, impracticable, the governor must submit a written explanation to the legislature the same day the budget is submitted. And two, as far as the collective bargaining timeline changes, which are included in NRS 288.565, 288.570, and 288.575, negotiations between the executive department and the employee representatives must begin by April 1st, which was previously October 1st. Mediation may be requested after 6 meetings or by September 5th of an even-numbered year if an agreement already exists. After 8 meetings or 90 days of negotiation for first-time agreements, arbitration must start by September 15th of an even-numbered year, and a decision must be rendered by December 5th of an even-numbered year, which was moved up from February, March of an odd-numbered year. It removes the ability to extend the arbitration deadline by mutual agreement. And third, as far as the economic forum reporting deadline, which is included in NRS 353.228, the forum must submit its economic projections and revenue estimates by November 15th of an even-numbered year, which was previously December 3rd, to provide earlier fiscal data to the governor and the legislature. This bill impacts how the state incorporates labor agreements into the budgeting and ensures early access to economic forecasts for better fiscal planning. The bill will become effective October 1st of this year. And as far as fiscal impact, the Department of Administration, Human Resource Management submitted a fiscal note of $144,474 in FY26 and $189,623 in FY27 for a new position to assist in the expedited negotiations of the 13 bargaining agreements. All of you know that we've been here and our unions are still negotiating while we're in session. They're not included in the proposed budget that we are presented with the governor, and then we are oftentimes trying to find the dollars if those CBAs are ratified, and they often don't get ratified till the end of our session, and it's happened where it's happened after session. And if it happens after session, we're not in session and we cannot act on those. This moves the timelines up for the governor so he or she can better work with those numbers, and it gives the governor an opportunity and the unions an opportunity by moving the economic forum dates up of what that economic forecast is for the state. And for us, it helps us with our budgeting as we're going through the legislative process. It's kind of a win-win for everyone by moving these dates up. So with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you so much, Chair, for your presentation. Anyone have any questions for our chair regarding this bill? Not for Chair, Assemblymember Anderson?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you for bringing forward this information because it's very, I think, a little bit of commentary first. Bringing in the dates, incredibly important to update that. Asking for a clarification as to why something did not go through the way that this has stated, or asking for clarifications around the bargaining information. Again, very important for us to have. My questions are more about the fiscal notes that were added to it from 2 different departments and whether or not that is the current practice. So I don't know if this is the proper place, or if instead when those departments come up, if it is better to ask those questions of both of those who have put in the fiscal notes, since this is not in fact a departure from the current practice, with the exception of asking for that report. So I don't know how the Vice Chair and our Chair would like to handle those questions.
Assemblymember Anderson, I actually had questions for Department of Administration and GFO's office. So I just wanted to make sure if anyone had any questions for our chair. If not, if we can have someone from the Department of Administration as well as the Governor's Finance Office come up. I think a couple of us may have some questions regarding the fiscal notes. So please welcome.
I have lots of phone a friends today.
And with that, Assemblymember Anderson, why don't you go first and then I'll follow you. And if anyone else has any questions for the administration, we can do that as well.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Backus. So my first question has to do with the Department of Administration's Human Resource Management. You state that in your fiscal note that there are current negotiations taking approximately 7 months, and basically this is taking up the entire day. How would this bill make a change to the, or it feels that that the administrator is not able to actually complete the other responsibilities? How would this bill make a change to what the current practice is, and to create this very significant fiscal note?
We're going to go down south for Ms. Washington to answer that.
Bashir Washington, DHRM Administrator. The fiscal note was added to add a chief negotiator position to the DHRM team that will provide that responsibility of negotiating for all of the contracts.
Follow-up? Thank you. So is that actually in the bill itself, or is this a decision made by the division to be able to do this for this unsolicited fiscal note?
Bashir Washington, for the record. It is not in the bill. At the moment, I am the chief negotiator for the state. We did 7 months of all day negotiating with all of the CBAs, and there is a need to have a chief negotiator that is separate from the DHRM administrator to be able to perform those functions.
If I may make a comment, how is that relative to this bill then? Because the current practice is what you're reflecting upon, but that is not asked for in this bill. If you could please clarify how the current practice is now making an impact on possible legislative changes.
Bashir Washington, for the record, can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. What you just stated is what the current practice is. So I'm trying to figure out how what your current practice, what we currently do, what the state is currently doing, is making an impact to a possible change that is being spoken of in this bill. Why exactly that is creating a fiscal note of a possible change of what the current practice is.
Bashir Washington, for the record. The bill has no change other than the dates in regards to when we start our negotiating, because this change came into play, and after 7 months of negotiating with the CBAs, I felt this was an important fiscal note to add while we were making these changes to this bill.
Thank you for that answer, but I feel that this is also a way to try to take away the collective bargaining rights of the employees. And so I have other questions as well for the other departments as well. For the governor's office, why exactly is there such a hefty, if I may, obviously I've got a few more questions, but I think I've made my point clear about how I feel that this fiscal note is attempting to take away collective bargaining rights instead of public employees. For the governor's office, why exactly is there such a hefty fiscal note as well?
Tiffany Greenmeyer, for the record. The reason why I put a fiscal note on this bill is due to the time of the dates that have changed. So it requires an executive branch budget officer currently right now to be part of the negotiations to determine the fiscal impacts for each one of the collective bargainings. Sorry. And so with that, then, so they're in all the hearings with, when they're negotiating, and they do fiscal impacts at that time. They also do fiscal impacts when the negotiations have been settled. They'll do it then. So it takes months, as they're going through this. And we do that right now through session. So taking an EBO2 to do it right now is not a problem. But to move it to the dates through agency request and the governor's recommended budget phase creates a problem, because that executive branch budget officer, too, has duties already to working on the governor's recommended budget. So that person can't do both, because it's the time that it takes to be in the negotiations and the hearings and doing the fiscal impacts for each one of those collective bargaining groups. We would need that extra person just to manage that.
Can I add to that? Danielle Monroe Moreno for the record. By moving the dates up, I don't know if any of you have watched the whole budget making, how the sausage is being made. It starts months in advance, long before we ever get a piece of paper called a budget. So if you, and no offense to the ladies sitting at the tables with me, if you saw the budget we got this session, it was a little messed up, right? By moving the dates up, we're adding another duty onto this office, taking that person away. Negotiating a union contract, and I don't know if any of you have ever done that, I have. It is time consuming. It's not just the meeting when the parties are sitting face to face. It's all of the research and everything that goes on behind the scenes. So with the current staff that's in the GFO, we would be asking that person to do all of that research for the CBAs, along with doing all of the work to get the budget together. By creating this other position, and I didn't think I would defend the fiscal note, but by creating the other position, we would have a dedicated person that's just working for those unions. We have 13 negotiating units in the state. They would be concentrating on that during the research and doing their due diligence to work with those unions to make sure we get to the best contract for both the state and the bargaining unit. And the person that's currently as the in the budget office would be able to focus on the budget being presented to this legislative body, the two coming together and giving us a budget that hopefully does not have 200 amendments when we come back to these seats next session.
And I just had a follow-up, because I too, it's interesting, Assemblymember Anderson and I were thinking the same thing, but I had the opportunity to kind of find out more about the overlapping in the time of if the budget's being made, and then if we move up the collective bargaining negotiations, which I think is completely important, given where we're sitting right now, waiting for arbitration awards for some of our collective bargaining units and trying to close the budget before the end of session. My question would just be, because all this is happening during the year, and then it comes to a point that the budget is being submitted and the arbitrations are all concluded. And this is mainly for the GFO, both offices, but I'll start with the GFO's office. What do you anticipate the person who's going to be crunching the numbers for the negotiations to be doing outside of the time period when collective bargaining is going to be? How do you foresee that position to operate outside of collective bargaining time period?
Tiffany Greenemeyer for the record. There's a lot of duties that I can utilize this position for. The biggest duty would be training. We need to get training out to the agencies on developing their budgets, training on work programs. So, and this, this is something we don't have. Right now, the current budget officers do the training currently, plus the duties that they have to do. So adding this extra person to go out to the agencies and provide the work program training that's needed, and to provide budget building training is really essential. So I do have plans if I can get this position.
Thank you so much for that. And I guess that's kind of tough when you're looking for these positions when you don't have someone and it's really like a point something position, but it sounds like it could be used in other capacities. Likewise, Director Washington, sounds like you're very busy with the hats you wear. When outside of the collecting and bargaining time period, how would you foresee the use of this additional personnel when during the other times of, I guess, in off years and other times outside of the collective bargaining process?
Bashir Washington, for the record. Outside of the collecting bargaining process, this person would be going to all of the state agencies across the state, providing training on each individual contract. So they would be training supervisors on up on how to interpret the contract. Also dealing with many of the grievances that come in, they would be working continuously with the unions in regards to any type of concerns or grievances that come.
Thank you both for that. I appreciate it. Members, do we have any other questions for the bill presenter or our agency heads? Seeing none, if you all want to take a step back, we can go ahead and open up testimony in support of Assembly Bill 356. We can go ahead and start here in Carson City. So whenever anyone makes their way to the table, go ahead and begin.
All right. Good morning, Assembly Committee on Ways and Means. Teresa Benitez Thompson from the Office of Attorney General. Here in support, the sections that impact our office are Section 1.5, Section 2, and Section 3. And these are the timelines through the CBA process. And so in my hat as Chief of Staff with operations for the office, our biggest concern was, do we have the amount of hours for the two attorneys to do this work to be able to accomplish this in this kind of time frame? So the bill sponsor was great in working with us to make sure that we were going to be able to comfortably handle this workload in these time frames. So we are in support.
Good morning, Vice Chair Backus and members of the committee. My name is Cassie Charles, representing the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, or AFSCME. Like Chairman Romoreno said, this is a win-win policy. This not only will help our members in the bargaining process, but it will help the state and legislative budgeting and funding our agreements. Our members fight hard for their agreements every other year, and this is good sense policy to help those agreements be implemented. Thank you.
For the record, Ryan Beeman, representing the professional firefighters in Nevada. Appreciate the bill sponsor for bringing this important piece of legislation to help our state firefighters with their contract negotiations and bringing these timelines in line with the budget process. It's a great policy bill for us as firefighters. Thank you.
Kent Irvin, K-E-N-T-E-R-V-I-N, for the Nevada Faculty Alliance in support of AB 356. The bill does not directly affect professional employees at NSHE, but it does help our classified staff colleagues with an earlier timeline for bargaining and making state budgeting more predictable, which is good for all of us. Since this is mainly a shift in the timeline for bargaining, there is a relatively modest fiscal impact. For the record, AB 356 would have no effect on AB 191, collective bargaining for NSHE professionals, because that bill does not impose negotiation timelines, but rather just follows the regular state budgeting process. AB 356 might need to be harmonized with two other bills that change the processes for the Nevada Economic Forum, SB 419, which moves the spring forecast date earlier, and AB 508, which adds the state education fund to its forecast, both of which are good ideas and to help the overall budgeting process. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll go to Las Vegas. Is there anyone in Las Vegas wishing to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 356? AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 356?
Thank you, Chair. There are no callers for support at this time.
Thank you. We'll come to Carson City for testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 356. Don't see anyone. Las Vegas, is there anyone wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 356? AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 356?
Thank you. We have no callers at this time.
Thank you. We'll move to testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 356. We'll start here in Carson City. Anyone wishing to give testimony in the neutral, please come forward. Don't see anyone. We'll go to Las Vegas. Anyone in Las Vegas wishing to testify in the neutral to Assembly Bill 356? AVH, has anyone joined us on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 356? Okay.
There are no callers to provide neutral testimony.
Thank you so much. Our chair has waived any closing remarks. So with that, we can go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 356. And we'll take a moment while she makes her way back to the dais to move on to our next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Vice Chair Backus. Members, when we started the meeting, we had 20 BDR introductions, and we've gotten 8 more. So I am going to go through all of the BDRs, and as I list them out, if you have any questions on any of them, please note that down. If there's not any objections, I'll take one vote at the end. Okay? Our first BDR introduction is BDR S 1171, which makes an appropriation to restore the balances of the stale claims account, the emergency account, and the contingency account. Next is BDR S 1172, which makes a supplemental appropriation to the Office of the Extradition Coordinator within the Office of the Attorney General for an unanticipated shortfall related to extradition costs. Next is BDR S 1174, which makes a supplemental appropriation to the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services for an unanticipated shortfall related to the Rural Child Welfare Budget Account. Next is BDR S 1180, which makes an appropriation to the Office of the Secretary of State for the costs associated with the voter registration and elections management system and connectivity of automatic voter registration agencies. Next is BDR S 1183, which makes an appropriation to the Fleet Services Division of the Department of Administration for the replacement and purchase of vehicles. Next, BDR S 1182, which makes an appropriation to the Office of the State Controller for the cost of certain consulting services. Next will be BDR S 1185, which makes an appropriation to the Supreme Court of Nevada for the cost of the implementation of a statewide trial court electronic filing system. Next, we have BDR S 1188, which makes appropriations to and authorizes the expenditure of money by the Division of Museums and History of the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs for certain vehicles, tools, and repairs. Next is BDR S 1192, which makes appropriations to the Department of Veteran Services for certain vehicles and equipment. Next, we have BDR S 1194, which makes appropriations to the Department of Education for certain surveys, professional development costs, information technology projects, programs, grants, and studies. Next, we have BDR S1196, which makes an appropriation to the Department of Education to carry out the Incentivized Pathways to Teaching Grant Program. Next, BDR S1199 makes an appropriation to the Nevada System of Higher Education for safety and security equipment and enhancements. Next, we have BDR S1206, which makes appropriations to the Department of Corrections for the replacement and purchase of certain equipment and furniture. Next, we have BDR S1209, which makes appropriations to the Department of Corrections for the purchase and replacement of equipment and furniture at High Desert State Prison. Next, we have BDR S1213, which makes appropriations to the Department of Public Safety for the replacement of computer hardware and associated software, vehicles and furniture, and for the information technology projects and recruiting campaign. Next, we have BDR S1214, which makes an appropriation to the Nevada Highway Patrol Division of the Department of Public Safety for the purchase and replacement of motorcycles, vehicles, and equipment. Next, we have BDR S1220, which makes an appropriation to the Department of Education for the replacement of an information technology system for educator licensure. Next, we have BDR S1222, which makes an appropriation to the Department of Indigent Defense Services for certain costs related to the provisions of indigent defense services. Next, we have BDR 311226, which revises provisions relating to the Governor Gwynn Millennium Scholarship Program. Next, we have BDR S1230, which establishes for the 25-27 biennium the subsidies to be paid to the Public Employees Benefit Program for insurance for certain active and retired public officers and employees. Next, we have BDR S1224, which makes a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Corrections for an unanticipated shortfall related to operating, travel, information services, maintenance, utilities, and inmate-driven expenses. Next, we have BDR S1217, which makes appropriations to the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for the replacement of computer and information technology equipment, vehicles, and other equipment for certain projects. Next, we have BDR S1215, which makes appropriations to the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for a certain new website and database, and for the replacement of vehicles and computer hardware and associated software. Next, we have BDR S1204, which makes appropriations to the Department of Corrections for various purposes relating to certain technology, training, and equipment. Next, we have BDR S1201, which makes appropriations to the Nevada System of Higher Education for cost of living adjustments for certain personnel. Next, we have BDR S1176, which makes a supplemental appropriation to the Division of Forestry of the state Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for an unanticipated shortfall relating to firefighting costs. Next, we have BDR 321131, which revises provisions relating to the Department of Taxation. And our final BDR of the day is BDR 381117, which revises provisions relating to Medicaid. Members, are there any questions on any of the BDRs introduced? And I will remind you, your vote today on these BDRs is not your agreement to the policy, but simply voting to get them moving and to the BDR process to become a bill that we will hear at a later date where you will have an opportunity to vote on the policy measure. Not seeing any, I'll accept a motion to accept. We have a motion from Vice Chair Bacchus, a second from Majority Leader Hodeggy. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you so much. That takes us to our very last item, and that is public comment. I'll remind anyone joining us online would like to call in for public comment. Our number is 888-475-4499. Our meeting ID is 863184749995, and then please press pound. Do we have anyone here in Carson City that would like to make public comment? I invite you to the table. I'm not seeing anyone in Las Vegas, so we will start here. Good morning, Mr. Irvin.
Kent Irvin, K-E-N-T-E-R-V-I-N for the Nevada Faculty Alliance. Just want to state our appreciation that BDRs are being introduced for two of our highest priorities, campus safety at NSHE campuses after the December 6th, and you've heard about that before, and also some adjustment for COLAs. We'll wait and see what that is. But we heard in the news this morning what seemed like fairly good news on inflation, 2.3% year over year. But if you look at just the first 4 months of this year, it's over 6% on an annual basis. So we are still seeing inflation, which will affect all state employees and their cost of living. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else here in Carson City and no one at the table in Las Vegas. Broadcast, do we have anyone join us on the phone line that would like to make public comment at this time?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working. However, we don't have any callers at this time.
Thank you so much. So members, that it concludes our meeting. I will see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.